Hello students, today we are going to study a very important topic in this chapter, current electricity, which is chapter perhaps 8, it is chapter 8 in your book. It is the Ohm's law. Now what is Ohm's law? So as you know that for a continuous flow of current in a conductor we make in the diagram like this. In the diagram it is made like this. So for a continuous flow of current in a conductor, a potential difference is required. As long as potential difference will be there, means one end will be at high electric potential. What is the symbol of electric potential? It is V. And other end will be at low electric potential. Then current will flow in this direction. And it will keep on flowing in this direction as long as the potential difference is there. As long as the potential difference is maintained, it will keep on flowing in this direction. It's clear. As soon as both the ends will come at the same potential, there will be no flow of current. Though still there will be the free electrons, but the current flow will not be established. And why it will not maintain? Because there is no potential difference. So this is the potential difference is required for maintaining the flow of current in a conductor. And how can you maintain that? You connect with this with the help of the positive terminal of battery and this end with the negative terminal of battery. It's clear. Or by using AC mains. You have seen in your houses there are the sockets like this are fixed on the board. This side is called neutral, this side is called live, and this is called the earth. Now if you fix this conductor here, one end with the neutral, other end is at the live, neutral end is at 0 volt, live end is at 220 volt, what will happen? A potential difference will be created and flow of current will start. Now, in 1826, there was a German scientist, George Simon Ohm. He gave a very important relationship between the potential difference which is applied across the conductor and current flowing through it. He gave a very important relationship between the potential difference which is applied across the conductor and the current flowing through the conductor. This relationship is stated in the form of Ohm's law. It's clear. And what is Ohm's law? So if the physical conditions of the conductor remaining same, physical conditions means its length, its area of cross section, temperature. If the physical conditions of the conductor remaining same, then current flowing through the conductor is directly proportional to V. It's clear. I is directly proportional to V. This law was given by the George Simon Ohm. By studying, by his experiments, he had deduced this law between the potential difference applied across the conductor and the current which produces because of that potential difference. So he found that as long as the physical conditions of the conductor remaining same, as long as the temperature remains same, current flowing through the conductor is directly proportional to the potential difference applied across its ends. You can see here what is Ohm's law. According to Ohm's law, the current flowing in a conductor is directly proportional to the potential difference applied across its ends, provided the physical conditions such as length, area of cross section, and tension in the wire, and temperature of the conductor remain constant. Means if on applying potential difference V, current I is produced in the conductor, then I will be proportional to V. Or we can write V upon I is constant. Means if V upon I is constant, for different values of V and I, you apply the different values of V and I. You can see here, if we apply different voltages, this is a source whose voltage can be varied. whose potential difference can be varied, and for different values of V you record out the value of I. When potential difference is V1, current is I1, potential difference is V2, current is I2, potential difference is V3, current is I3. So you will find that I will be proportional to V, or V upon I will be constant for all values of V and I. It's clear. This Ohm's law states that the V upon I will remain constant for the different values of V and I. Means V upon I is constant, and this constant depends upon the physical conditions of the conductor. It depends upon the nature of material of the conductor as well as temperature of the conductor. In case of metallic conductor, it also depends upon temperature. Metallic conductors are what you know, those which are made up of copper, aluminum, iron, gold, silver. Gold, silver we don't use because they are very costly materials. So that's why we generally use copper, aluminum and iron. So here this constant is equal to R, and it depends upon the length of the conductor, on area of cross section, on the nature of material of conductor as well as on temperature. It's clear, and it is known as electrical resistance of the conductor. This constant we call as the electrical resistance. Means from here you will get R equals to V upon I. It's clear. This will be the electrical resistance of conductor. Means you can say that electrical resistance of conductor is equal to the ratio of potential difference applied across the conductor to the current produced due to that potential difference. Suppose on applying potential difference of 10 volt 2 ampere current produces, what will be the resistance of this? It will be 10 upon 2, that is equals to 5 ohm. We also know that the unit of resistance is ohm. So this is all about the Ohm's law. Now what is the SI unit of resistance? Already we know that SI unit of resistance is ohm. Since R equals to V upon I, what is the SI unit of potential difference? Volt. SI unit of electric current? Ampere. So what will be the SI unit of resistance? You divide the SI unit of potential difference by SI unit of current, that is volt per ampere. It is volt per ampere. This is named as ohm. It's clear. Means 1 ohm equals to 1 volt per ampere, that is 1 volt upon 1 ampere. Means how can you describe the 1 ohm? Electrical resistance of a conductor is said to be 1 ohm if on applying a potential difference of 1 volt, a current of 1 ampere is produced in that conductor. Electrical resistance of this conductor is said to be 1 ohm if on applying a potential difference of 1 volt, a current of 1 ampere flows through the conductor. It's clear. What are the bigger units of resistance? Bigger units of resistance, you know, kilo ohm and mega ohm. 1 kilo ohm 10 to the power 3 ohm, 1 mega ohm equals to 10 to the power 6 ohm. Now you can see here how will you define the electrical resistance quantitatively? Qualitatively we have already described in the previous lecture that it is the obstruction offered by conductor in the flow of current. It's clear. How will you describe it quantitatively? So one definition I have given that electrical resistance of a conductor is numerically equal to the potential difference applied across its end, is numerically equal to the ratio of potential difference applied across its ends to the current produced due to that potential difference. This I have told that electrical resistance of a conductor is equal to the ratio of potential difference applied across its ends to the current produced due to that potential difference. Now in the other way here it is given, since R equals to V upon I, so we can write V equals to I into R. If I equals to 1, suppose it is 1 ampere, then V will be equal to what? 1 into R, that is R. Means R equals to V. Means we can say that the resistance of an electrical conductor is equal to that potential difference. Resistance of the electrical conductor is equal to that potential difference which is required to produce a potential difference of which is required to produce a current of 1 ampere. Resistance of a conductor is equal to that potential difference which is required to produce an electric current of 1 ampere. It's clear? That much potential difference which is required for producing a current of 1 ampere is said to be resistance of that electrical conductor in ohm. It is clear? Now, what are the limitations of conductor? As if you do experimentally, you will find that the Ohm's law do not follow for all values of V and I. Means the ratio of V upon I is not constant for different values of V and I. You can see in the experiment that for every conductor it is not necessary that V upon I is constant for different sets of V and I. It will have some different value, though there will be this I will increase on increasing V. Here through the conductor, the value of current will increase on increasing potential difference applied across its ends. But it is found that V upon I do not remain constant, though it is largely followed in the metallic conductor. In the metallic conductor, this relationship holds for up to a moderate range of temperature, because as you know that when current flows through this, then due to its resistance, heat energy is liberated, and heat energy is liberated, so what will happen? Its temperature will be changed. But up to the moderate range of temperature in metallic conductors, it has been found that V upon I remain constant for different values of V and I. It's clear? But at a very high temperature, it will also not remain constant. So there are some limitations of Ohm's law. It is obeyed only when it is obeyed. Obeyed means the ratio of V upon I for all values of V and I remain constant. Ohm's law is obeying means this ratio should remain constant for different values of V and I. This ratio should remain constant for different values of V and I. It's clear? So it is obeyed only when the temperature of the conductor remains constant. As soon as the temperature will vary, and temperature is quite obviously it will vary. Why? Because when current will flow, conductor will offer resistance in the flow of current, due to which what will happen? Heat energy will be liberated. I have told in the previous lecture, because of the resistance, free electrons loses their energy, and that energy is liberated in the form of heat energy. Due to that heat energy, its temperature will be changed. So this is the limitation. But it has been found that the metallic conductor obey this condition for a moderate range of temperature. At a very high range of temperature, what will happen? The ratio will be changed. So this is this. Now if you plot a I versus V graph, I versus V graph means I versus V graph, VERSUS, V graph. I versus V graph means I will be plotted on Y axis and V will be plotted on X axis. If you conduct the experiment, for example, here I have told you record for different values, you take a metallic conductor here, you have taken, suppose this is a aluminum wire. By applying different values of potential difference, you have recorded the current with the help of ammeter. Ammeter is an instrument which records the strength of current. So far, by applying different values of potential difference, you record the current flowing through it. You have get these values. Then you plot the graph here. You plot the graph, means plot the point V1 comma I1. This is V1 comma I1 because V is on x-axis. V2 comma I2. V3 comma I3. You will find that this graph will be a straight line passing through origin. It will be a straight line passing through origin. It's clear? Now the slope of this graph. How will you find the slope of the graph? What is the procedure of determining slope? So on the graph you take 2 points. Then you find out their values on x-axis. So this point on x-axis is corresponding to V1. This is corresponding to V2. Now what is its value on y-axis? On y-axis it is in front of I1 and on y-axis it is in front of I2. What is the formula of slope? So slope is, you have already studied in the coordinate geometry, y2 minus y1 upon x2 minus x1. It's clear? So here it will be I2 minus I1 upon V2 minus V1. It's clear? This you can write delta I. Delta I means difference of two values of I divided by delta V. And what is I upon V? It is R. Means the slope of I versus V graph is the reciprocal of resistance. It is the reciprocal of resistance, which we also call as conductance. Which we also call as the conductance, whose unit is ohm inverse. What is the symbol of conductance? G. G equals to 1 upon R. G equals to 1 upon R. It's clear? Now see here, ohmic conductors and non-ohmic conductors. It's clear? What are the ohmic conductors and what is the non-ohmic conductor? You can see here. Before that, one more thing. If we plot a graph of V versus I, in the previous graph I have plotted I versus V. Now it is V versus I. V versus I means V is on y-axis, I is on x-axis. Graph will be a straight line passing through origin. But now the slope will be V2 minus V1 upon I2 minus I1. That is delta V upon delta I will be resistance. So you remember that slope of V versus I graph, slope of V versus I graph gives resistance. Now there is one more thing. Suppose on the same scale you draw the two graphs. Here two graphs are drawn. Here in this side you have taken V and in this side you have taken I. Here you can take one graph is this and this graph you can name as 1 and there is another graph is this, which is having greater slope. So you can tell that the slope of 2 is more than slope of 1. This graph is plotted for suppose one conductor. This is plotted for the other conductor. Its slope is more, means V versus I graph is having greater slope for conductor 2 than conductor 1. Therefore, you can say that the resistance of conductor 2 is more than the resistance of conductor 1. Means greater the slope of V versus I graph, greater will be the resistance. Now, ohmic conductors. Ohmic conductors are those which obey Ohm's law for all values of V and I. For all values of V and I means their ratio V upon I remain constant for all values of V and I. Their ratio remain fixed, means whether you find V1 upon I1, V2 upon I2, V3 upon I3, V4 upon I4. For all values, it will remain same. Such conductors are called the ohmic conductors. And what will be the graph V versus I graph for such conductor? It will be a straight line. Strictly it will be a straight line passing through origin. Both the conditions should be fulfilled. For ohmic conductors, V versus I graph will be a straight line passing through origin. It's clear? While if you see I versus V graph, you will find that I versus V graph will also be a straight line passing through origin. Means for ohmic conductors, this graph will be always a straight line. Now, what are the ohmic conductors? All metallic conductors are ohmic. For example, iron, silver, gold, aluminum, copper, these are all ohmic conductors. Nichrome, which is an alloy, it is also a ohmic conductor. Copper sulfate solution with copper electrode, that is also ohmic. It's clear. But it has been found that at a very high temperature, if the current flows for a very long time, wire will become very much heated. Wire will become very much heated. And when it will become very much heated, what will happen? This proportionality will change. It's clear. But that change will also be negligible. That change will also be negligible. That's why metallic conductors are assumed as the ohmic conductor for a moderate range of temperature. It's clear? Their V versus I graph will be a straight line passing through origin. The slope of that graph will give the resistance. Now, what are the non-ohmic conductors? For example, if we draw the same graph for junction diode, for the transistor, we will find that their V versus I graph will not be a straight line. It will become curved from very beginning. It will become curved from very beginning. Means these conductors do not follow a constant proportionality between V and I. These conductors do not follow a constant proportionality between V and I. V upon I do not remain constant. Do not remain constant. For different sets of V and I. For different sets of V and I do not remain constant. That's why this graph become curved. It do not remain a straight line, it become curved. And it is also not necessary that it will pass through origin. It may pass through some other point also. It is not necessary that it will pass through origin. It may pass through some other point also, means here I have drawn this. It's clear. It may pass through some other point also. It's clear. Now see here, if you find out V upon I, so the value of V upon I different at different values of V and I. For different sets of V and I, this value is different. Means we can say that the resistance of a non-ohmic conductor is different for different values of V upon I. How will you find the resistance for a particular value of current? Suppose for this value of current, you have to find the resistance of this non-ohmic conductor whose graph is this. So what will you do? First of all, you will locate the point on the graph. Corresponding to this current, you locate the point on the graph. Then at that point, you draw the tangent to this V versus I curve. Draw the tangent to this V versus I curve. Now you determine the slope of tangent taking 2 points on the tangent. Taking 2 points on the tangent, not on the graph. On the tangent, you take 2 points. 1 point is this, it is corresponding to I1 here, here it is V1. Now this point I2, this is V2. So what will be its slope? Slope will be equal to, you can see here, if you find out the slope, it will be equal to slope of tangent, that is V2 minus V1 upon I2 minus I1. This value is called the resistance of the non-ohmic conductor for this value of current. Resistance of the non-ohmic conductor for this value of current, and it is called the dynamic resistance. Means here it is written the resistance at a particular value of V or I is obtained by finding the slope of the tangent drawn at the corresponding points on the V versus I graph. This is called the dynamic resistance. Dynamic resistance means resistance of the conductor in the working condition. Resistance of the conductor in working condition. Now, what are the examples of non-ohmic conductors? LED, light emitting diode, junction diode, transistors, filament of bulb, solar cell. These are the non-ohmic conductors. It's clear. Now see here. After this, superconductors. What is the meaning of superconductors? So, as you have already seen that there are some good conductors, then there are best conductors, good conductors whose conductivity is good, best conductors whose conductivity is more than the good conductors. Superconductors are those whose conductivity is very, very high, whose conductivity is much more higher than best conductors. Means they offer almost negligible resistance. Such conductors are called the superconductors. What are superconductors? Those conductors whose conductivity is extremely large, or in other words, we can say that whose conductivity is infinite. Conductivity is infinite and resistance is zero. Here, conductivity is infinite and resistance is zero. There is no resistance. It is clear. So, almost negligible resistance. Such conductors are called the superconductors. But there is a limitation, you can say, or it is the drawback. Best conductors will remain best conductors at all values of temperature. Good conductors will remain good conductors at all values of temperature. Whether the temperature is very low, minus 273 degrees Celsius, or temperature is 27 degrees Celsius. Similarly, here also, both will remain good conductors whether the temperature is minus 273 degrees Celsius, which we call 0 Kelvin, or whether it is 27 degrees Celsius, which is nearly the room temperature. Room temperature is, in standard practice, it is taken as 27 degrees Celsius. It is clear. But in case of superconductors, substances will behave like the superconductors only in the low temperature range. Only in the low temperature range means when the temperature is near to 0 Kelvin, nearly 0 Kelvin. It's clear. There are some substances whose temperature, when reaches near to 0 Kelvin, they behave like the superconductors. But at the ordinary temperature means at the room temperature, they will be just like these. It's clear. They will be just like the ordinary conductor, just like a good conductor. It is clear. They will lose their property of superconductivity. Superconductivity, this property exists only in the low temperature range. Superconductivity is shown only near to 0 Kelvin. Only in this temperature range, substances show the property of superconductivity. It's clear. Now see here, If we draw a graph of resistance versus time, here a graph is drawn, resistance versus temperature, not time. It's clear. And here we have taken the temperature in Kelvin scale. It's clear. This is 0 Kelvin. It's clear. Here it is capital T. So it has been found in the metallic conductor. For metallic conductors, resistance directly proportional to their absolute temperature. Resistance directly proportional to absolute temperature means on increasing temperature resistance will increase, on decreasing the temperature it will decrease. It's clear. Means at 0 Kelvin it should become 0, at 0 Kelvin it should become 0 ohm, but it is only theoretical. At 0 Kelvin it should become 0, it is only according to the theoretical rule. Experimentally it has been found that there are some material, for example niobium, for example mercury, for example lead. It has been found that when their temperature is decreased, then at a low temperature which is called the critical temperature, their resistance abruptly falls and becomes 0. Their resistance abruptly falls and becomes 0. It has been found that there are some substances, some metallic conductors like mercury, lead, niobium. So it has been found in these substances, in these metallic conductors, when the temperature is decreased, resistance decreases, and below a critical temperature, that critical temperature is Tc. It's clear. Their resistance abruptly falls, not gradually. It is immediately becomes 0. Below Tc, below this temperature, it will immediately become 0 or nearly 0. Such substances are called the superconductors. It is clear. But what is, all of you remember one thing, that superconductivity, this property is shown only in the 0 Kelvin range temperature. Only in the 0 Kelvin range temperature this property is shown. It's clear. At the ordinary temperature 0 Kelvin, you know that it is minus 273 degrees Celsius. You can think about this temperature, minus 273 degrees Celsius. At the room temperature 27 degrees Celsius, they will be just like the good conductors. It is clear. So you can see here, a substance of 0 resistance at a very low temperature, that is 0 Kelvin, are called the superconductors. Here these are tin, lead, mercury, etc. decreases their resistance, lead, etc. decreases resistance of substances like this decreases tremendously with the decrease in temperature and becomes almost 0, near absolute 0, that is 0 Kelvin. Such substances are called the superconductors. It is clear. Now there is one more thing. This property was invented in 1911 by K. Owens. It's clear. I don't know the full name of K. It is K. Owens, invented by K. Owens in 1911. So such substances with the decrease in temperature becomes almost 0, near absolute 0, that is 0 Kelvin. Their resistance versus temperature graph will be like this. It's clear. When you are decreasing the temperature, resistance decreases. At a critical temperature, when temperature will be reached at critical temperature, below that it abruptly decreases and becomes 0. It's clear. So because of this property, the substances have infinite conductance in low temperature range. Conductivity is infinite, conductance is infinite, but resistivity and resistance will be almost 0. These substances behave as ordinary conductor at room temperature. Here it is given some substances and their temperature, that temperature below which they are superconductor. Mercury below 4.2 Kelvin. Below 4.2 Kelvin means nearly minus 269 degrees Celsius. Below minus 269 degrees Celsius. So you can imagine lead below this, niobium 9.2 Kelvin, below 9.2 Kelvin, aluminium below 1.175 Kelvin, and zinc below 0.85 Kelvin. These are the examples of the superconductor and the temperature below which they show this property. It's clear? If anyhow we can obtain the superconductor at the room temperature, then what will happen? It will become very easy that we can maintain the power supply without the consumption of energy. We can maintain the flow of current without consumption of any energy, because the energy is consumed because of what? Because of the resistance. So if the resistance will be zero, then what will happen? The source which is supplying this energy will not lose the energy. Current will keep on flowing indefinitely without consumption of any energy. Current will keep on flowing without consumption of energy. If anyhow we can obtain the superconductor at the room temperature, because maintaining this temperature, maintaining minus 273 degrees Celsius, it is almost impossible that throughout you can maintain this temperature. It is clear? Supercomputers are based on this. It is clear? But in those supercomputers, we maintain this temperature. It's clear? So that their resistance is almost negligible and conductance is infinite. Now these are the type 1 superconductors. These are type 1 superconductors which I have told. There are some type 2 superconductors also whose critical temperature is little higher. Critical temperature is little higher. And type 2 superconductors are made by mixing 2 or more metals, 2 or 3 more metals. It's clear? But that is not in your course, so that I am not going in that. Now after this, there is one more thing you can see here. Here, choice of material for a wire. You can see in your book, choice of material for a wire. The choice of material of a wire depends on the purpose for which that wire is used. It depends upon that purpose for which the wire is being used. You can see here, the choice of the material of wire depends on the purpose for which the wire is to be used. The wires which are used for electrical connections and for power transmission. So for them we use low resistance wire. It's clear? For power transmission, for electrical connections, we use those wires which have the low resistance, which have the low resistivity, and such wires are of copper and aluminium. If you see the resistivity of copper and aluminium, here it is shown, resistivity of copper and aluminium. You can see copper 1.73 into 10 to the power minus 8. Aluminium is 2.63 into 10 to the power minus 8. Rest all are having more resistivity. So for that, what purpose? For electrical connection purpose, we use the copper and aluminium because their resistivity, their resistance is low. Then for this fuse purpose, fuse wire. For fuse wire, we use an alloy which is consisting lead and tin. It's clear? We use a wire which is made up of an alloy, and that alloy is made by mixing 2 or more metals. Here this alloy which is used for the fuse wire is made by lead and tin. And when it will, what is the property of this alloy? This alloy is having low melting point and high resistivity. Low melting point and high resistivity. It's clear? Here this alloy is consisting 50% lead and 50% tin, so that fuse melts earlier than the melting of connecting wires. It's clear? So this is the fuse wire. Fuse wire is a protective device that you will read in the next chapter. Filament of an electric bulb. For the filament of an electric bulb, we will use such a wire whose resistivity is more, so tungsten wire. It is tungsten wire is used, its melting point is high as well as resistivity is also high. And why do we use high resistivity wire for the filament of bulb? Because filament of bulb is producing light on heating. So when it will be heated strongly, it will produce more light. When it will be heated strongly, it will produce more light. So for that we use the wire of high resistivity and high melting point also. Then resistance wires for standard resistors. What is the meaning of standard resistors? Standard resistors are those whose resistance do not vary on passing the electric current. Whose resistance do not vary on passing the electric current. For example, in case of filament of electric bulb, which is made up of tungsten, you can see that when no current is passing through it, means when the filament is in the cold state, its resistance is very low. But when the current passes through it, when it becomes heated, its resistance rises to a very high value. So tungsten wire is not a standard resistor. It is not a standard resistor. A standard resistor is one whose resistance remains same for all values of temperature, whose resistance do not change significantly on passing the electric current. And this property exists in alloys. Alloys like nichrome, manganese, constantan. Already I have told that alloys are made by mixing two or more metals. So these alloys, nichrome, manganese, constantan, they have, you can see here, these substances have almost zero variation in their resistance on increasing the temperature. With increase in temperature, there is almost negligible variation in their resistance. That's why these materials are used for making the standard resistors. It's clear? So now this way the theory of this part has been finished. Now in the next lecture we will do the exercise of this. Thank you.